Buongiorno. Morning. I'm here in body. That was a good couple of days. Very, very tired. Very, very tired. To get our flight out, we had to leave here at 4. That's 4 in the morning. Yeah, I only recently discovered there's 2 4s in a single day. So, yeah, we left here early. Would have expected to sleep on the plane because that is my specialist subject. Didn't manage to do that. Got there, did a gala dinner, so didn't get to bed early. Up early the following day. Full day at the show. Up early the following day. And then I didn't get back here until about 12:15 last night. So, yes, I'm a man barely awake. As a result of all of that, I can tell you there is no morning monologue today. I do have a lot to tell you about, but no morning monologue today. I'm going to kind of front load things and tell you some of the things that we saw here over in Verona. I'm going to say good morning to Ken Hatcher, to Andy Dalville, to Chris Ford, to Gary Muirhead, and anybody else that's crept in while I wasn't paying attention. Had that from Chris. Good morning, boys and girls. Have you all been good while the master was away? There were 2 things on that. I hope everyone has been good. And 2, master. Are you serious? I'm as much a guest as you are. Jamie Tavui is over on Instagram this morning as the Polynesian Plant Op. If you're not following him already, I would strongly suggest you do that. Andy Dalvell says, buongiorno, buongiorno, buongiorno. Yeah, that's about all I've got Italian-wise. I could do a bit of buonasera in the evening, but you know, good trip. Couple of things. Jamie says, buongiorno, catching up, catching what I can this morning. Little one's about to wake up, so going to be in and out. Master or role model? I count as neither. I honestly count as neither. But yeah, it was a good trip. An eye opener. Let's say I'm going to address one thing very quickly because I did have a specific question from Gary Muirhead, which I can't now see. There we are. Welcome back, Mark. How was SaMoTeR? Did you bump into Marco Lorini by any chance? Well, thank you very much indeed, Gary. Glad to be back. Kind of. Would I have liked to have stayed another couple of days in Verona? Yes, I would. SaMoTeR was fantastic. I think I said this 3 years ago. I'm going to say it again now. It's my favourite exhibition. Very manageable, very hospitable. The people are lovely. The food's fantastic. The weather on the first day of the show, sketchy, but I was indoors for most of it, so it didn't really matter. And the sun came out yesterday, along with the hay fever, which I'll bore you with some other time. But no, a really good show. And I do think, bearing in mind we're in the run-up to Hillhead, and I don't suppose there's anyone from Hillhead watching, and even if they are, it's too late to do anything about it. But man alive, it's Italian exhibitions, like the French, like the Germans, like the Americans, are chalk and cheese with what we have here. So there were toddlers. I was on the Komatsu stand at one point, and there were toddlers literally just running around the place. Now there was no moving equipment, so fair enough, no moving equipment, but there were toddlers running around, and they were climbing up onto machines. They were sitting in the cabs. They were pulling joysticks. Nobody batted an eyelid. There were also older children, 10, 11, 12, literally stood on top of a wheel loader, stood on the back end of an excavator. Nobody fell off. Nobody got hurt. Nobody made a song and dance about it. It was just families out doing what families do. Out in the demonstration area, there was kind of a display. We have filmed all of this, and I will show it to you. I haven't had time to edit it yet, but there was a big demonstration area along one side in which, let me think, Volvo, Komatsu, Devellon, Caterpillar, plus Trimble, Topcon, Leica, all took part in a demonstration of digital construction. So they literally did it as you would imagine a road being paved. So it started with guys from Trimble, Topcon, and Leica scanning the site. That information went up into the cloud, and then we had excavators, and we had graders, and we had dozers, and wheel loaders, and remote control excavators, all working together for an hour-long demonstration that worked really, really well. But over on the other side, there were There was a Volvo display, a JCB display, an MB Crusher display, a Kobelco display, and all of those were active machines. And if you wanted to, you could have a go. There was a fence, low level, probably waist height. There was a fence to separate, sort of demark the machines from the people, the punters. But if you wanted to have a go, you could do that. Compare and contrast that with the UK. I mean, when we get to Hillhead this time, unless good sense has prevailed, not only is there a fence between you and the equipment, there's a double fence between you and the equipment, which I know annoys my son Fred enormously because it makes photography really, really difficult. Over and above that, there were educational events. So there were seminars, presentations, and so on down the line. And they were standing room only. Now, on the first day, I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt because it was raining outside. I thought, everyone's just coming to stay out of the rain. It wasn't heavy rain, but I thought it was a bit like the beer tent. We'll go indoors and we'll have a look at this. I saw it the second day, third day. It was absolutely chock-a-block. One of the things that stood out for me, now bearing in mind, we were very, very much in the minority as the Brits there. Round Verona itself, because Verona is now a destination for both EasyJet and British Airways. There were lots and lots of British accents around, the Verona Square, around the arena and everything else. Get to the show, you're absolutely in the minority. Everybody there is Italian, by and large. And yet, those presentations, I was invited to one, and I arrived, and I sat down, and the presentation started in Italian. And I was sat there thinking, how do I politely leave? And one of the organisers came up, gave me a link to my phone. I pressed the link, and I was watching a live AI-generated transcription of the presentation that's going on. Still got the Verona hay fever. Not only did it work, but there were times where somebody would say something. Oh, excuse me. There's another one. Oh, dear. Yes, somebody would say something, and I'd be reading the transcription on my phone and thinking, that doesn't make sense. And then as they carried on saying, the AI went back and thought, well, that now doesn't make sense. I've corrected myself. Oh, dear. One of the standout things about Verona this time of year, obviously it's spring. There is a particular type of willow tree in and around Verona. I think it stretches up to Milan and places like that. And it sheds this kind of fluff. You can see it in the air. And it is literally like Mother Nature saying, get ready because the hay fever's on its way. It's that evident. I will answer Gary's question in just a moment, but there's one other thing that really stood out to me about the exhibition. Not just the organisers, although I think they played a big role in this, but also the punters that were there as well. I get the impression that a lot of exhibitions are a money-making exercise. You take a bit of a punt, you take over the Verona Fieri, and then you invite people to come along and exhibit, and you charge them to exhibit, and then you try to make your money back. And I'm sure SaMoTeR did exactly the same thing. But this, above all the exhibitions that I've attended over the past nearly 40 years, this one feels like it's an exhibition with a purpose. From the educational bits indoors to the educational bits outdoors, the whole thing seems to be driven by, we want to inform and to educate and to encourage. When they did one of the panel discussions at one point, it wasn't just a few consultants or people that are, considered influencers. It was owners of companies. There was the main man at Venieri. There was one of the main guys at Kobelco. It was the proper big hitters on a stage sharing their knowledge and their insights. Unbelievably good. Now, to answer the question from Gary, SaMoTeR was fantastic. I did not. As I was leaving, Marco Lorini was arriving. He's due at the show today. However, I did catch up with one of his colleagues to talk about the Jumbo 2, and I can tell you it's going to be based on the Cat 6015. Although obviously it's been upgraded because there's been a change in the 6015 since Despe got theirs. So the Cardem machine is going to be slightly bigger, longer tracks, wider tracks, 34-meter working height, although it is going to be made with a 4-meter extension that will take it to 38 meters, obviously. A 15-ton tool at full height. It's going to be an absolute beast. They're working against the clock. Apparently, the machine has got to be delivered by January, which seems a long way off, but bearing in mind, I mean, I've followed the progress of some of the Keurig machines in the past, and sometimes they're 18 months, 2 years in development. This is going to be turned around in the next 7 months or thereabouts. It's been designed primarily for, I think it's ship and offshore equipment decommissioning. That's its main role. But before it does any of that, and obviously I think that will be, on the coast or possibly even off the coast. But before it does that, it's going to a project in Paris, partly to tackle some demolition, but also as a bit of a shakedown. So it's going to be an opportunity for both Cardem and for Larini, and probably Caterpillar as well, to find out what's good, what's bad, what needs changing, what needs upgrading before it goes out to work. So that machine is in full effect. I mean, they are really going for it at the moment. I think that may have been why Marco wasn't at the show. He's working that hard on it. Update on the SaMoTeR machines. There's a couple of those out into demolition. There's also another one that's gone into sheet piling, slightly modified, obviously, modified front end. But yeah, Larini are looking very, very good right now. I've filmed a whole heap of stuff while I was at SaMoTeR, and rather than doing what I was doing before, here's a 10-minute walk around, I've broken it down. So I'll do you a walk around Kobelco, a walk around Komatsu, and so on down the line. We'll be bringing those to you very, very soon. Met up with some fantastic people. One that really stood out was FPT Industrial. They are the provider of some of the engines for Case, certainly in the Case wheel loaders. Some of the Liebherr excavators, the Generation 8 excavators, they're in Iveco trucks. They're all part of the CNH, or FPT are part of the CNH business. And one of the things that they've developed is what they refer to as an agnostic engine. I've told you about an agnostic dump truck that we saw at Mine Expo from Komatsu. This is an agnostic engine. So it's a regular engine which you can run on diesel today. If, however, you want to change it to biofuel, you can switch out the head, put on the biofuel head, and the engine will run on biofuel. It will also run on HVO. It will also run on hydrogen. Really, really smart technology. I'll be telling you more about that. Gary says, sounds like a show to add to the bucket list, and the food would be amazing too. Listen, given the fact, I know you're a little further away, Gary, up in Bonnie, Scotland there, but it is very, very important to understand just how big a deal Verona is. It's an hour and 40-minute flight from London. Not particularly expensive. I mean, I think we didn't pay for it, but our return journey was about 130, 140 quid. The hotel accommodation there, not particularly expensive. Getting around on Ubers and taxis, not particularly problematic. And I'm on a bit of a health kick at the moment, but I did fall off the wagon slightly yesterday. We went to a restaurant. Last time I was in Verona, I was there with my wife, and I wasn't well. I caught a bug, nothing to do with food, but I'd caught a bug and was feeling pretty rough. And I took her out to a restaurant where she had lobster linguine. And while I was sat there with a glass of water, feeling really, really bad, really sorry for myself, she was sat there tucking into this lobster linguine, and I was really gutted that I didn't get to go to this restaurant. Not particularly fancy. It's a restaurant basically down an alley. It's kind of between two restaurants, and they've crammed another one in. But we finally got to go back there yesterday, and Fred had the lobster linguine, which he was absolutely overjoyed with. But I had gnocchi with brown crab. I can honestly say it's one of the nicest things I've ever eaten. It was gorgeous. And the whole bill with drinks and various other bits and pieces, I think it came to about 45 quid. It's good. SaMoTeR should be on your list. Conexpo is hard. It's hard and it's expensive. Bauma is it's almost like a challenge. I mean, the hotels at Bauma are phenomenally expensive. It's an absolute foot slog if you want to see it. Intermat, You can do it by the on train, which and I would recommend you do that. I think that's Intermat is next year. But if I were meeting for the first time, meeting a plant enthusiast, and they said, "Oh, I'd love to go to one of these exhibitions. Which one should I go to?" SaMoTeR, every day of the week. Listen, I'm going to Hillhead. I love Hillhead, but it's better than that. It's better than Intermat. It's better than Plantworks. It's better than Baumer. It's better than ConExpo. It's better than Mine Expo. It's just better. It really is. Now, let me see. Best of luck to them. I like their work ethic and family-oriented group, blood relatives, and the way they treat their employees. They ooze class and decorum. If you're talking about Lorini, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about Lorini. I don't know, but if you are, you're absolutely right. Mercy Johnston is back with us. Jim Turner, as you've just seen, is here. I didn't hear from Mick, unfortunately, although, to be perfectly honest with you, even if I had, I wouldn't have been able to see him anyway. We were literally, we ran out of time. We literally finished filming. Fred was filming on the Komatsu stand. I was filming on, where was I? I think I may have been on TopCon at the time. And we literally finished, packed our bags, got in a taxi and went to the airport. So that gives you an idea. Yes, going back to the children at the show, they are the operators, owners, buyers of the future. Yeah, they are. And I know it's stating the obvious, and I know I say this every time I bring up this subject. But they were, those toddlers I was talking about were there with mums and dads, some of them pushing around pushchairs and that kind of thing. The people that have got their best interests most at heart are not the health and safety police. It's not the organisers of the exhibition. It's not the owners of the Verona Fieri, which is where it takes place. It's their mum and dad. And if mum and dad think they're okay to get up on a machine and sit there and wiggle some levers, why not? Why not? And bearing in mind, I saw this most. I spent quite a bit of time on the Komatsu stand. And Komatsu is, it's a global multi-billion dollar company. They have very, very strict rules and regulations about health and safety and about how they project themselves and everything else. But they just got into the Italian spirit of, we can do these things. There was not so much in your face as ConExpo. I mean, you could walk into ConExpo and grab yourself a beer at 8 o'clock in the morning if you wanted to. But all of the places, all of the eateries selling the sandwiches and various other bits and pieces, all offering wine, all offering beer. No problems at all. Everyone just enjoying themselves. Because of the nature of the show as well, I saw representatives both from the Italian army and the Italian police, Polizia. And I don't consider myself to be anti-police. I think sometimes they're a little heavy-handed in this country. I think they focus their attention a little too much on wokeism than they need to, and various other bits and pieces. But over there, I was stood there filming part of the digital construction event, and a couple of policemen came along. And the reaction of the crowd was to kind of step aside, make way for them, and then one by one, people were having the photographs done with the police. Don't feel like that would happen here. Really don't. It really is a different world and a better one. A better one. As much as I love getting back home to the wife and family and everything else, I could quite happily have stayed there. One thing before I press the button and get this show underway, I do need to address I was going to say the elephant in the room. It's more the dog that's not in the room. Day before I went to Verona, we had to say goodbye to our last remaining boxer dog. I was expecting her to die of a broken heart. We got 2 rescue boxer dogs at the age of just under 1 year old, 14 years ago. He died maybe 6 months ago, and having been through that with male and female boxer dogs in the past, we had one 15 years ago who died, and the bitch that had grown up with him died literally about 2 weeks later. So we were kind of expecting her to go exactly the same way. She didn't. She hung on and she hung on. Lost a little bit of weight and stuff, but no, she was as good as gold. And then 2 days before I was due to go to Verona, she fell over. Looked a little bit shocked, a little bit stunned, couldn't get herself back up again. But we fed her up, and we consulted the vet and everything else, and she had a decent night's sleep. Got up the following day, came downstairs, went out for a walk like she always did. No problems, no falling. And I thought, well, okay, maybe it was just a one-off thing. And then literally the day before we were due to go, she walked into my daughter's bedroom. My daughter's got one of these walking mats, a bit like a running machine, but just for walking. And our dog Echo walked up it and kind of hit a dead end and just stood there like, I don't really know where I am. So I picked her up and turned her around. She came downstairs and she fell down again. So I had to take her. To the vet, and the vet, gave her a once over and said, "There's a lot wrong here. What do you want to do?" We had no choice. And it's the worst job you ever have to do. I mean, I've now had 5 boxers, and I've been with all of them as they've been put to sleep, and it never ever gets any easier. I know we've got some animal lovers in the audience, so you'll know exactly what it's like. But with this one, it's weird how I'm a family of we're a family of 6, me, my wife, and 4 children. I bought our first boxer dog for my wife's 21st, and we were fortunate enough to have him for about 15 years. And then we had another couple, and they gravitated to other children. Our second boxer dog gravitated towards my eldest daughter. The bitch, she gravitated towards one of the twins, and so on. But when we got these two, when we rescued these two, it was very much a case of the dog, the male one, was very much Fred's dog. He didn't claim it, the dog claimed him. And the bitch, Echo, claimed me. She was very, very, we've got a couple of sofas in our front room. Where would she sit? She'd sit, basically on my lap. All through, my best mate dying, she was there. And I don't want to over sort of emphasize things like that, but pandemic and stuff, she was a constant companion. I've mentioned it. I wish I'd put her on the show actually, but the number of times I've done this show with her under the desk snoring, and yeah, that's done and dusted. I'm afraid, and really feeling it. The saddest I've felt for quite some time. Just bloody awful. It really is. Thank you for those there. Gary saying RIP Echo. Sorry to hear that, Mark. My heart goes out to you and family. God bless her. Absolutely. Sorry for your loss. And I know it's a dog, but sorry to hear, Mark. Losing a dog is horrendous. They're never just pets. They're definitely a member of the family. They really are. And we ended up having to go to an emergency vet, and I was with her, as I say, when she finally passed. And I came out, tears streaming down my face, and there was a guy sat there with a little, I don't know, sort of Jack Russell-y, probably a bit of a mongrel really, sat there with it on his lap, and he had exactly the same look on his face. So I got the impression that he was there for exactly the same reason. So yes, it is tough. Now, on a more positive note, didn't have a huge amount of time to do goodie collecting, but I can tell you, I have several things. I'm not going to do a competition for this one because I can't actually imagine why anyone would want it. But there is let me bring it in. There you are. There's a Maruka cowboy hat. If I bring it into focus, there we are. I'll be giving that away at some point in not too distant future. We've got ourselves the new look Komatsu hat. That's up for grabs, or will be up for grabs. A nice new yellow MB Crusher hat. This one I was really taken with, to the point where I didn't really want to give it away, but I'm going to. It's from a company called Italdem, and it has the Italian logo on it, which I think is pretty damn fine. There's a Hyundai bag there as well. Can you see that? Let's have a look. If you want to carry your goods about and carry the Hyundai branding, you can do that. But over and above all of that, I promised you this a couple of weeks ago, and it's finally come to fruition. we are entering the period of time where you should be concerned about your hydration. I was, while I was in Italy, I've drunk my body weight in water because, frankly, it got quite warm over there. So, yeah, focus of hydration, very, very important, particularly if you're working in a hot environment, which you will be. And, you know, it's vaguely warm today. It's going to get a lot warmer. So we've reached out to a company called Air Up. And Air Up do these water bottles, and you put an insert like a capsule in it, and it makes your water smell flavored. It doesn't actually flavor the water, but you get a waft of a flavor up your nose. And when you're drinking, it's like, oh, Coca-Cola flavor, or apparently one of the flavors is popsicle, whatever. So we've got 5. I'm not doing it today. There you are. That's the actual bottle itself. Apparently this one, I'm sure I saw a name for the color here somewhere. Yes, this is Midnight Black. That is what the water bottle looks like. I can probably do a... Can I get in it without ruining the box? No, I can't. You'll have to take my word for it. That's the bottles. We've got 5 of those to give away, and at the same time we're giving those away, we've got a pack of 5 of their best-selling flavor packs as well, which looks like that. And apparently, I think you get about 4 liters per capsule of flavor. So you've got about, what is there? It's 15 liters worth of drinkies in there, if you're that way inclined. I'm going to say good morning once again to William Sitwell. The food critic off the telly, William Sitwell, is in our midst. Yeah, in here we have a cola one, we have a peach one, and a watermelon, all of which sound absolutely delicious. We'll be giving those away next week, so keep an eye out for that. Is it next week? I think it's next week, maybe the week after, because next week is going to be a little bit broken up. I'm here on Monday. I'm here on Tuesday, but as soon as the show is over on Tuesday, I'm loading the car up and I'm driving up to JCB because we're going to be at JCB overnight for a launch the following day. And then I'm back for a bit. And then at the end of the month, the 26th, 27th, I'll be here on the 26th. But again, we'll have to finish the show, jump in a car, head off to Stansted Airport because I'm going to the Czech Republic with the fine folks at Bobcat to spend a couple of days in their company. And then when I get back from that, I'm going off to Sweden with Volvo. So it's going to be a little bit disjointed in the coming weeks and days, but we are going to give away all 5 of those Air Up bottles to keep you hydrated and make sure you don't go beak down anytime soon. And we're going to be giving away all those hats and bags and anything else I find in my bag when I do finally unpack. Jim Turner says, do they do a Guinness flavour? Not as far as I know, but I'll be sure to check their website. If you want to know more about them, the company is called Air Up, AIRUP, Air Up. Have a look. I think it's a German company, but they approached me with the idea of doing an article on all things related to hydration, and I will be doing a piece on hydration. But if you want to get one of those for yourself, you can do that. Excuse me. Will you bring up the question, are they staying or leaving the UK? I will. I absolutely will. This is a little bit like a glimpse behind the journalistic curtain, just to give you an idea of how this is not everybody, but this is how I work. I use a lot of AI and stuff like that, not for producing articles, but for reference. So when I hear something about JCP, for example, it might be a new machine, might be a machine they've sold, might be somebody that's joined the company, might be something that was in the newspapers, whatever it might be. All of that gets stored away. And then before I go to actually meet up with them or before I speak to them on the telephone, because it's AI, I can just literally trigger it. I will actually pull together a set of questions, discussion points, and I'll take that with me. And that obviously is right up the very top. I personally do not believe they will be going anywhere anytime soon. I wouldn't blame them if they did, but I don't think they'll be going anywhere anytime soon. But I will be asking the question. Andy Darvell says, oh, Guinness flavour now you're talking, Jim. How about 2-stroke flavour? Well, I'm sure you could top them up. I wouldn't suggest adding 2-stroke, but you probably could. We are a half an hour in, which is good because there is no morning monologue today, but that does mean that the show will run about the same length. I am going to go back to Instagram, though. Jamie Tubby says, sorry, mate, toughest loss as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it is. It almost made me feel guilty. Just how unbelievably sad it made me. I spoke. I lost both my parents in 2022, and I spoke on the show about being stoic about it and trying to help support my dad through the funeral and doing the eulogies and all that kind of thing, and being very sort of stiff upper lip. Didn't shed a tear. Still haven't. They hit me hard, obviously, but didn't do that. And then all of a sudden, you say goodbye to a dog, and it breaks your heart. I don't, as I say, I kind of feel guilty about it, but you can't help what you do, can you? I'm going to say good morning as well to OKB Attachments. Don't know OKB Attachments, but I'm going to say good morning to them nonetheless. Jim says, "Can you put when are they offering me a job into your AI?" Yeah. I mean, just to be clear, I know you're saying that with a big smiley face. I have mentioned you in dispatches up at JCB a good 3 or 4 times now, Jim. I offer I offer you I offer them your services on a fairly regular basis. I'm just waiting for them to say, "Oh, go on then, I give in. What's his telephone number?" At which point you may well get a phone call. Mick Norton has just joined us all the way, probably from sunny Wakefield. It is time to crack on. Let's do the show what we're supposed to do. Let's have a bit of, well, we'll start with Kat and then we'll go on. No, we don't do it that way, do we? Let me do it this way. We'll do this first. Go away for a couple of days and I completely forget how the show works. Yes, it is Friday, the 8th of May. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic voice of the global demolition industry, and a bunch of other stuff as well. In today's show, Caterpillar lifts the lid on its new Cat 319 excavator. Shantui rolls out some new products at SaMoTeR 2026. Relocating cables, Dutch style with Kobelco, and Sandvik, and the birth of a new underground mine. There is no morning monologue today. Didn't have time, I'm afraid. But yes, we'll still be doing an hour or thereabouts. And listen, I've got nowhere to be. If you want to chat for longer than that, we can certainly do that. But yes, that's okay. That's how the show is supposed to start. We're going to start with a bit of Cat, and then we're going to have a bit more Cat. While that was going on, bring you up to date, I've just had an email that's talking about Anglia Square, the demolition of Anglia Square over in Norwich. And it's, let's have a look. Questions have been raised about the decision to hand a £5.9 million contract to a demolition firm to knock down Anglia Square after it emerged the company was fined for illegal bid rigging. Now, this will come as no great news to anybody. The company involved is DSM. We know they were one of the CMA 10 back in 2023. The firm was appointed by Norwich City Council in July 2025 on a 9-month contract with hard demolition beginning last autumn. The council says the contract was awarded through an open and competitive process in line with public procurement law, and that DSM was not subject to any statutory exclusion. But Ian Stoutley, a Green councillor who represents the area, said the appointment raises questions about the authority's judgment. DSM has not responded to requests for comment. So yes, it's the CMA business continues to bubble along. I'll do more on that when I get a moment, because as I say, that arrived live while I was speaking. What do we got here? Jim says, I think I'm too old and uneducated to be considered useful by them. Do you know, the older I get, the more I wonder about that. Given my time over again, unfortunately, that isn't an option. I have looked, but that isn't an option. But if I were given my time over again, I would not be quite so enthused by all things academic and formal education. I do think there's an awful lot to be said for the school of hard knocks, knowing stuff that's actually useful. Think about things I was taught at school, like equations. Don't need that anymore because I've got one of these. I was taught a bunch of historical dates. Don't need that anymore. I've got one of these. There's so much that we don't need to be teaching in school now. You know, if I could have left school with the ability to balance a checkbook, fix a plug, change a light bulb, check my spark plugs, and switch out a spare tire, I think I'd be better off. I learned none of those things, just to be clear. Mick says the Cat 319 clip didn't do him justice. Key improvements need to include more lifting capacity and a wider track gauge to enhance stability. I haven't played the Cat thing yet, have I? I'm sure I haven't. It's coming up. It's coming up now. I'm really tired. I'm really tired. If I thought I just played the Cat Hammers advert. If I've played this before, I mean, it only came out last night. If I've played this before, like this morning, please let me know, because I may have had a brain fart. But here is the Cat 319. Whatever ails you, Mick, it's contagious. Apologies, Mark. Senior moment, brain fart from Wakefield regarding the Cat 319. Well, your brain fart gave me a brain fart, so it's clearly something in the air. Dan is currently on an 8-ton Takuchi. Absolutely love it. Be his machine of choice, he says. Just everything is in right proper. Hydraulics need power, he says. Incidentally, and I'll go over to Gary's comment in just a second. As part of the live demonstration at SaMoTeR, I've got to get used to saying SaMoTeR. It's not SaMoTeR, SaMoTeR. There was a remote-controlled Takuchi excavator. And there was a guy with the controls walking along behind it. And when it came in sort of from stage left in the outdoor area, it was going very, very slowly, really, really slowly. And I was stood there thinking, how bloody impractical is that? I mean, the bloke was literally strolling beside it. I said, oh, can you imagine trying to get that where it needs to be to go and dig or something and then take it away again? What a ball ache. Turns out he was not even at half throttle, because when somebody introduced the Takuchi, the bloody thing shot off like a rocket. Yeah, superb. Really, really superb. Gary says, Mick, Cat did the same with the Cat 320 GC. They needed a wider undercarriage because when you went over the side, you could feel it. Yes, we've all felt that. Andy W, good looking machine, that. I do like a bigger machine with a blade on it. I agree 100%. Meant great hydraulics need great power. Indeed, yeah. As I said, didn't get to go to the Takuchi stand. Just ran out of time. One of the many that we didn't get to look around, but they did put on a good display, I have to say, over at SaMoTeR. We'll be back after this with somebody else that put on a good display at SaMoTeR.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Now, I did have a good walk around the Shantui stand over in Verona, because as it stands at the moment, I don't know if they're represented here. And I'll come back to that point in just a moment. I don't know if we've actually got Shantui available here in the UK, although when you see the video, the guy that's actually doing the presentation is a Brit. Now, I don't know whether that's they hired him for the event or whether that, maybe they are coming. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But I did a walk around, and I will be bringing it to you at some point in the future. But while I was asleep on an aeroplane and getting back late and everything else, thankfully, Shantui put together their own video. So this is just a glimpse of Shantui at SaMoTeR.
Here at SaMoTeR in 2026, Shantui are launching 3 new machines. The machine on my left is our brand new CTL 75VM. This machine, similar to in characteristics to our SSL, but slightly heavier, more power, and obviously able to go in more areas with the tracks and the design on that. Moving from our skid steer range, we then come over to our next newest machine, which is the machine behind me, our brand new SE85SR. This brand new machine coming into the country weighing just over 9,000 kilograms, giving maximum strength, tear out, and stability. Moving on from this machine, we've got something even bigger here at stand at SaMoTeR, and that is our brand new SE135 machine. This machine is with a customer in Germany. It's had a specific design machine. It's got rubber track inserts for working on asphalt and asphalt protection, as well as multi-functions on the end of the machine as well. Customer's very happy with this machine. It's brand new. Come and check us out here at SaMoTeR 2026 on stands D2 to D4.
You see, I don't know where I stand with this now. I was calling the company Shantui for years. And then I was taken aside by somebody from Shantui to say, actually, it's Shantui. And there's your man on a Shantui video saying Shantui. That lot, you get the idea. I forgot to mention, I can send these in an envelope. Not as a giveaway, just if anyone wants them. I picked up 4 stickers from Komatsu. They're all exactly the same. It features the new PC05E. If anyone would like one of those, let me know, and let me have your address, and I'll stick one in the post for you with my compliments. back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Device that basically planes the road, then puts an additive into the bitumen, is added to bitumen, and then reinstated all in a couple of passes. I got to see that up close and in person. That was fantastic. The remote control Takuchi was an absolute standout, but the one that really caught my attention, there was you remember when we were at Balmer, there were a bunch of what I can only describe as compact high reaches. Case had one, Devellon had one. Feel like somebody else had one, but certainly Case had one and Devellon had one. Found another one. This one was actually based on a little Hitachi. So had it was a zero tail swing, MIDI excavator. I need to look it up, but probably about 8-9 ton excavator, high reach, tilting cab, proper demolition tool. You'd probably only use it up to about 2 stories, maybe 3 at a push, but it looked the dog's doodahs. It really did. For the right application, looked absolutely fantastic. We filmed all of this. I'll be bringing it to you in the not too distant future. And to be perfectly honest, because we were running out of time, normally when Fred and I do these exhibitions, we tend to do them kind of in tandem. So he's driving the camera, I'm doing the interviews and that kind of thing. This time, as I say, because we were so pushed for time, he went off and mostly did Komatsu on his own, and I was off doing other bits and pieces. So I haven't seen all that he's seen, and he hasn't seen all that I've seen. So once we actually get down to start editing it, I think we'll be seeing some other stuff that maybe we haven't seen before. So keep an eye out for that. That will be coming down the pipe. Now, I've just been to Italy, and the show has just been to Italy. We're off now to the Netherlands with the fine folks at Kobelco down by the water's edge. Not that one in particular, but a month's time, I'll be sat by a canal just like that with a little fishing rod in my hand, looking very, very content and happy. Mick says, and again, this is something else to add to my list of questions for JCB, because JCB are very much in the forefront of the fight against anti-dumping Chinese-built excavators. Are Chinese excavators no longer considered as grey imports? I'm not entirely sure where we stand on all of that, because it goes into a legal, governmental. There's an announcement that there's a problem, and at some point, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, there will be some kind of resolution. But between times, I'm not entirely sure what's going on, so I shall keep an eye out for that one. Can I get an employment contract? I don't know. Can you? I don't know who that is, but they are watching on Facebook. We don't offer jobs here, but there is a guy here in the chat. There you are, a guy called Dan Cullen. You'll see him over on YouTube at the moment. Get in touch with him. He's a man with a finger on a pulse of all things job related. And Dan is saying, lovely day here in Chelmsford. You're a tough man to nail down, Dan, I have to say. It was, where was it, Plymouth last week? It's Chelmsford today. Did I see you're maybe heading up to Leeds or something like that? I never know where you are. You're like a bloody nomad. So, right, okay, we've got, what have we got? Yeah, we've done that one. Let's have a bit of this. And then we're going underground, kind of. Ah, yes, Dan, Wimbledon. He's like the elusive Pimpernel. I don't know if he's on the run from something, but he seems to be somewhere new every other day. Do you ever stop and think about mines? Probably not, but if you do, and maybe you're like me, when I see an underground mine, there's something in the back of my head thinks, that's always been there, but it must have started. If somebody must have dug a big bloody hole at one point and said there'll be gold down there, or coal, or copper, or zinc, or whatever it might be. Well, this is how a mine begins. Sandvik, do your thing.
I'd like to spend my energy in something that I feel will help the world as well. Not just building a mine, but building a company and a culture, really. McIlvenna Bay projects are Foren's flagship first operation. It's located in east central Saskatchewan. It'll be an underground mine. We'll be mining critical minerals in the form of copper. Also have zinc, gold, and silver. The decision and the feasibility, all the assumptions were around the battery equipment. That choice is really aligned with Foren's vision and mission to be responsible and sustainable miners. It's a key piece for many reasons, on the safety front, on the GHG, on the power consumption costs. There's so many things that come with that. The team felt comfortable as to where the technology was. It's not an R&D project. It's being used. It's going to become the accepted norm in the future. The key was technology. Are we confident this is the right technology? It's robust, reliable. That was a big one. And then just the partnership aspect of it. So that collaboration piece, real partnership, relationship was another one. And we've all got a lot of writing on this, on the success of this, and it's evident that Sandvik wants this to succeed as much as we do. So that's been a great experience. Really feel like the team is part of our team. Employees are really, standing behind it. Excited to be part of it, and excited to be on that journey, and proud to share the story of sustainable mining and responsible mining with their families and their friends, knowing that we're responsible and do what we can to pull out the critical minerals, to build these batteries and to support the world through decarbonization, but also doing it in a way to not hurt the environment.
And that's how a mine happens, apparently. Let's have a look what we got here. The UK imposed definitive anti-dumping duties on Chinese tractor excavators 11 to 80 tonnes from 14th of May 2025, lasting until 2030. Absolutely true. The Trade Remedies Authority found that Chinese OEMs were undercutting UK-based manufacturers, primarily JCB, by 23.39% due to lower production costs. All of which is true, but there is my understanding, and as I say, I can't say I've looked at it particularly recently, but there was a bit of toing and froing. I know some of the Chinese manufacturers were more helpful in the investigation and have therefore been rewarded with lower tariffs. I think those that have sought to block the tariffs have been hit a bit harder. My understanding, as I said, the last time I looked at it, there was still some back and forth to be done. If that's been resolved, well, I mean, I will ask JCB, as I say, as they were the perpetrators of the original inquiry or the original complaint. I'll ask that question when I see them on Tuesday night, Wednesday daytime. So keep an eye out for that. But I can promise you, Mick, that is absolutely 100% on the list. Dan saying, love moving around and meeting new companies and people. Yeah. It's one of the joys of exhibitions. One of the real joys of exhibitions and getting to meet people, well, catching up with people you haven't seen for a while, meeting new people. Met some really, really smart people. There's a new guy up at Komatsu in Berkeley. We've had a guy on the show in the past, several times actually, a guy called Vince Porteous. I'm not entirely sure what Vince's role is now, but he's been there since Christ was a choir boy. I reckon he's been there for 30 years plus, probably even more than that. But he's now got, I'm not saying he's a replacement, there's a guy called Tom, I can't remember his surname, but Tom is now working under Vince. Young guy, really into his ultra marathons and cycling and all that kind of thing. Really nice guy. Really nice guy. Some of the people I met elsewhere, there was a guy, Ricardo, over at Cimex. Good time with him. Enrico, a guy called Enrico Iori over at VTN. We had a long chat about attachments and that kind of thing. Michelangelo over at the Larini stand. Met a smashing fella on the Kobelco stand whose name I don't have in front of me, but really nice guy. And the people, there's a lady called Elena over at ProMove. It looks like we're going to be doing some work with ProMove in the run up to Hillhead. So I'll be telling you more about her in the fullness of time. So yeah, just hanging out with good people, all with a common interest. And it was just a lovely time. Despite the fact that I have the merest, very scant understanding of Italian, and a lot of the Italians don't speak a great deal of English, we got by really quite nicely. We had a fine old time. 3 years' time, book a flight. You can probably get it for about threepence if you do it now, assuming that nobody's blocked the Strait of Hormuz and kept all of the aviation fuel under lock and key. That will be happening. Keep an eye out for that. That pretty much wraps up today's show. It is going to be disjointed again next week, and for that I can only apologise. We do seem to be entering the silly season at the moment. I'll be here on Monday. I'll be here on Tuesday. JCB on Wednesday, then back Thursday, Friday. A couple of days back, or best part of a week back, I guess, and then off to Czech Republic. So the 26th there will be a show, but there won't be one on the 27th and the 28th because I won't be there. So it's all a bit disjointed, but all good because it means we'll be giving you lots more new footage. Mick Norton says, this weekend I'm attending a military reunion of plant operators who served in Thailand with the Royal Engineers in 1968 to 1968. Some of us haven't met up for 60 years. How I would love to be a fly on the wall at an event like that. Because I'm not, Mick, you know me well enough now. You've been listening to this old twaddle for 6 years. I'm not blowing smoke up your rear end, but Mick, you really do have many, many stories to tell. If there's a room full of like-minded fellow Mick Nortons with all those stories to tell, I'd love to just sit there and absorb, let it wash over me. I'd be fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Anyway, people, that pretty much brings us to an end. As I say, there is no morning monologue today because I literally didn't have time to do anything with it. So I'm just going to roll the outro in a second. If anybody has anything else they'd like to add, then I'm not in any hurry to leave. But if you're not, I'll call it a day. I'll go and have a cup of tea. I've not had tea for a good few days. Had some lovely coffee, mind you, which was very nice. Dan saying have a fantastic day and a fantastic weekend as well. Thank you very much indeed, Dan. You too. Fair play, Mick. That'll be some crack. Yeah, absolutely. See, therein, I think, lies an opportunity for UK, well, exhibitions, but UK exhibitions in particular. It's all well and good putting on presentations where basically somebody will come along and try to sell their wares. You know, you'll have somebody from Finning talking to you about I don't know, SaMoTeR or their oil sampling system and everything else, but basically they're stood there trying to sell something to you. I know a couple of influencers have had meet and greets at Hillhead and at Plant Works. my face is probably telling you everything you need to know about my personal feelings on that. But wouldn't it just be lovely to have somewhere at an exhibition, be it a Hillhead or a Plantworks or Executive Hire show or one of these shows, just for the crack? Not to sell anything, not to promote anything, not to promote anybody, just a bunch of good, honest, dyed-in-the-wool plant men and women in the same room, just chewing the fat, much like we do every day here. And I, I'm very keen that it shouldn't be monetized. But you imagine, if you could do that properly, maybe have somebody talking about old plant, Mick Norton, I'm volunteering him for that, or somebody from one of these vintage Caterpillar collectors organizations, just sit around, cup of coffee. I was going to suggest a beer, but it's Britain and we frown upon that. A cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and just chat about the machines we've loved and lost and that kind of thing. Just well, there you are, Dan. Hits the nail on the head. Talking about kit, not roll up, buy one of our new excavators, not look how fancy our technology is. None of that. Just sat around having a good old chinwag about a common interest. Dan says that'd be very interesting. Stories to be told there would be very interesting. Yeah. And this is, I'm glad the conversation went down this route, because you've just reminded me of something that I was meaning to mention. I do need to mention that our friend Jim Turner is now, he's a proper YouTuber. He's got the 1,000 subscribers. I'm doing this from memory, but I'm fairly sure he's got the 1,000 subscribers. So he is the real deal. There is an audience out there of people that just want to look at and talk about and discuss plant. I've tapped into it here. Jim has tapped into it there. There is a bunch of people that are out there who would like nothing more than a forum, and I don't mean an online forum, I mean a forum through which to just chew the fat, as reminisce, share experience, share their stories. The reason I'm mentioning Jim, and I know he's not yet doing anything unless he's done something while I was away. I know he's not actually doing anything, face to face like I do here. But people would watch that, because this industry is absolutely filled with stories and with storytellers. We do it here all the time. I always hark back to Gary Muirhead, and he had a colleague who was turned up cross-dressing. I don't give a toss what anyone dresses as, but it's slightly unusual. There's a story to be had there. Mick is full of stories from way back when. All of that stuff. Now, Mercy says, how are you getting on with the Tiny Politics show? It's all right. Yeah, it's all right. It's proved to be a little more divisive than I expected, and maybe that's just me being completely naive. For those of you that weren't here when I was talking about it before, the whole notion of Tiny Politics, which is completely unrelated to any of this, is politics has become very, very, very far removed from day-to-day life. You'll have politicians deciding who can eat and who can keep their houses warm just with a flick of a pen. When I think most people, if you asked an average Joe, do you think that an older person should be able to eat and heat their home? I think most of us would go, well, that seems fair enough. They've been paying into the tax system for long enough. I think most of us would agree that was. So that was the idea of Tiny Politics. I've thrown it out there, and there's been a bit of backlash. There's been a bit of backlash, but then again, I get that here. Bizarrely, I had one recently when I was talking about the HS2 project being a dangerous white elephant, given all the accidents there's been and near misses and stuff like that. And I put a video out about that, and somebody came along. What do you know? What do you know about this? What gives you a right to spout forth about this? Why are you talking into a microphone? Well, obviously that's how you hear me. But if Jim has proved this, if you want to have your own platform, I would guess my tiny politics is kind of lefty leaning centrist. I consider myself a liberal. I try my level best to like most people, to see most point of views. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a fascist. I'm kind of hovering between the two. I have launched a channel. It's only got a couple of videos on it so far. It costs me nothing to do it. You can do it with a webcam. You can do it with your mobile phone. It costs you nothing to have a YouTube channel. So rather than going on to my YouTube channel and telling me all that's wrong with me and my microphone, do your own. If you think HS2 has been a rip-roaring success, that its health and safety track record is second to none, untainted, if you think that it's been a really, really good use of public money, say so. You can do it. You can literally press record on your mobile phone. You could have your own YouTube channel, your own pro HS2 channel this morning before lunch. Why bother doing, going into somebody else's and saying, oh, yeah, you're talking rubbish, you are. What gives you the right? Well, 40 years experience as a fucking journalist is what gives me the right. But just bizarre. So yes, in answer to that, I was hoping to film one of my tiny politics films while I was in Verona. I had a bit of afternoon where I thought, that'd be a good opportunity. I'll take myself away, probably in a hotel room or something, and I'll do that because it's all fresh in my head. Didn't get the afternoon. So yeah, not possible. Jim Turner says, I'm not sure my mush is going to pull any punters in. We've had this conversation, and there's 1,000,001 people on YouTube telling you how to grow, how to be successful, how to be famous, how to make a fortune, and everything else. In this industry that we're in, there's one rule. Well, there's two. Keep uploading. Consistently. If you can upload and upload, sooner or later you're gonna upload something that actually hits the spot. The other point, which is more specifically to the short form vertical content, do not, under any circumstances, ever start a video with your face. Now, I realize that if you go over to our Instagram channel, same rules apply. I do that every single day. I start with me on camera. I can guarantee if I started with an image of a digger, a dozer, a loader, a dump truck, and then immediately went into me talking about something, it would get far higher views, far higher engagement, because it wasn't this face, it was a digger. So Jim, even if you do end up putting you and your fine set of whiskers on display, make sure that the opening frame, particularly in short form, the opening frame is a digger or something, because people are scrolling. No, they may not stop at beardy bloke, but they will definitely stop and look at a dozer or a digger or whatever it might be. Keyboard warriors love drama. Yeah, they do. And the crazy thing is, I've said that tiny politics is my attempt to bring politics down to a personal level. I do believe that most of us are pretty caring. I don't think we're openly hostile mostly, in our day-to-day lives. And yet you put a keyboard and a screen between people and they just become emboldened and more extreme. And I don't understand it, because all I'm doing, the only thing that makes this any different is the fact that I'm doing it to a camera. If I were invited to UK Construction Week, which is fairly soon, I think, if I was invited to UK Construction Week and they said, "Oh, Mark, you sit there and talk bollocks 5 days a week, get up on stage and tell us what you think about HS2." And I would stand there and I'd say, well, I had high hopes for it. I was expecting it to be a real legacy project, and I was hoping it was going to create a lot of jobs and fund a lot of apprenticeships. But as we know, it's spent an absolute shit ton of money, gained nothing. The jobs haven't come to fruition. It's a failed project that is half the length that it was supposed to be. If I were to do that to an audience of 100, 200, 500 people, in all likelihood, I would not be heckled or interrupted. I wouldn't have things thrown at me. Somebody might wait for me to come off stage and say, "Oi, you're talking bollocks, pal." But by and large, they would allow me to just say my thing, and then I'd go back to my day job, they'd go back to their day jobs, and we'd all just get along. But as soon as Dan has rightly said, as soon as there's a keyboard and a screen and a camera and a microphone involved, all of a sudden, everyone's an expert. Everyone needs to hear their opinion. When did that become a thing? I honestly don't get it. Gary says, "Jim, I think you've tapped into a very niche audience with vintage plant content, because before you, I never knew anyone else doing it. So keep up the amazing work, pal." Yeah. One of the things that I've found really pleasing and pleasantly surprising about this show, obviously, it was born out of COVID. I had no way of sharing what I'd seen at ConExpo 2020 because the magazine had gone away. You all know the story. And when I started this, I mean, obviously, I'd come back from ConExpo with tales of new Caterpillar equipment, new Liebherr equipment, Volvo, whoever. Excuse me. So this whole show was very much built around the notion of every single day, I must show everyone something new. Ideally, show them 2, 3, 4, 5 things that are new. The industry doesn't really work like that, particularly in the run-up to things like ConExpo and to Bauma. A lot of the manufacturers have got new machines, but they sit on them because they want their moment in the spotlight. They're going to launch them at Las Vegas or in Munich, and they sit on them. So there are great periods of the time where there are new equipment. No, there's no new machines to discuss. So kind of out of necessity, once or twice, I've dug through the archives and dredged up footage of, older machines or vintage plant fairs. Some of that has been our most popular content. Going back to what Gary was saying there, I absolutely agree. I think you have tapped into a proper market. I really do. And now, obviously, we probably won't have much video footage from our mix time as an engineer back in the 1960s. Video cameras were not widely available back then. But if you think about all of the machines of the 80s, even the 90s, bear in mind the 90s is now 30 plus years ago. You're going back several generations of people, probably several generations of equipment as well. If you can build an audience all our yesterdays, not necessarily for people in their 60s or 70s who may or may not be on YouTube, but people in their 40s and 50s that have already had 30 years in the industry and are quite keen on a bit of nostalgia. I think that's an untapped market. I really do. And I also wonder, I've not been to a vintage plant event for a long time. I do need to sort that out. I do need to get along to one or two. But I also think there's opportunities with merch for that as well. I mean, I can't remember exactly what the phraseology was, but imagine a T-shirt, old plant operators never die. They just smell that way, that kind of thing on a T-shirt. I think you'd sell a shit ton. I really do. Thanks, Gary. Says, Jim, I try to aim for a video a day. It's not always exciting, but I try to be consistent. Yeah. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. It might not always be exciting, but you might have. You imagine you go to one of these vintage plant fairs, and there's an old Cat D8, and there's a Cat D9, and there's a Priestman, and there's a Hymac or something like that, and then tucked in the background is a 30-year-old Thwaites dumper. You filmed it, but it's just a dumper. It's a bit banged up. It's just a dumper. There may well be somebody out there who operated that very model 30 years ago for whom that is a memory. It's not technologically, it's not a Cat D8, but that will resonate with that person because they've been there and done that. So even the unexciting sometimes kind of is. Gary says we could call it the Wonder Years. Do you remember the TV show The Wonder Years? I absolutely loved that show. Fred Savage and stuff. Yeah, fantastic. Joe Cocker doing the theme tune. Well, I say Joe Cocker doing the theme tune. Was it A Little Help from My Friends? Possibly. I mean, he'd done it years before and they just stole it. But yeah, no, fantastic show. But yes, Jim, listen, mate, I massive congratulations on getting to where you are. The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. And I do genuinely believe that, particularly if you can keep the consistency going, keep up those reels and those shorts and all those sort of things. Yeah, you're destined for stardom, my friend, and good luck to you. Anywho, people. Oh, just one other thing. Jim, should you ever put yourself on camera, and I hope you do, because I want to hear your stories as much as anyone else. You get weird things, right? So I was due to meet some people on the case stand, and I arrived at the case stand. I was about 5 minutes early, 2 days ago. Arrived at the case stand a couple of minutes early, and I thought, what was the name of the people I was supposed to? And I've got an email, so I've got my phone out, and I'm looking at them. And while I'm stood there, a woman came up and went, Mark. I went, yeah. How did you know it was me? And she went, oh, you're famous. I'm not. I've got a presence. I'm not famous, but you will get that. Jim, put yourself on camera, and your journey around Hillhead, maybe not this one, but possibly the next one, will be markedly different. Jim, you're that bloke. You're the fella. I'm not sure if that sits comfortably with you, but that's the kind of thing you get. And it really is quite ingratiating. And I love sitting here having the chat. Despite the fact there's been no morning monologue, we're still at an hour, 18 minutes. I do love having a chat. And I'm not, if I was trying to make myself famous, I wouldn't be doing it in this industry sector by any means. But the fact that something you've done, a video you've produced or an article I've written or whatever it might be, has actually resonated with somebody. Somebody has sat there and watched it. And even, with my tiny politics, I have had some backlash. But in order for that backlash to have happened, somebody that I have never met and in all likelihood never will has sat down, given me 5, 10, 15 minutes of their time just to listen to me droning on. It's quite cool. Really is. Jim Turner says, I've got to go on camera. I made that promise. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. I tell you what, I mean, I there was a bit of chat going on in the WhatsApp group about Hillhead. I don't know when or if you're going to Hillhead, Jim, but if you're there on the opening day, because I'm probably only going to do the opening day this time around, maybe that is the time when we actually sit down and do something to kickstart my Blue Collar Heroes subset, and maybe we'll have you as our first guest. Maybe when we're going to have a long one, Mark. I'm glad you clarified that you wanted a long one and a show. My wife is going to Greece in early June. It's after I get back from Volvo. Yeah, it's after I get back from Volvo. So I think she's going on about the 10th. So I will probably have a free Saturday. So I may well just say, okay, well, let's see if we can beat the 4. Was it 4 minutes 20 or 4 hours 20 minutes, something like that? Was the longest one so far? Do that. One of my mates that might be at the reunion swung a punch at BBC's Julian Pettiford on BBC's 24 Hours Guru in Thailand back in the day. Is there footage of that available? I love old stuff like that. Do you remember Grace Jones throwing a punch at Russell Harty because he was ignoring her? Yeah, see, that's what we need. We need somebody on this show to throw a punch at me. That'll increase the ratings. Jim, when I sit down and point a camera at you, throw a punch at me. I mean, try not to hit me because I am a bit of a softie, but throw a punch. It's YouTube gold. We'll make us both famous. Sounds a great idea, says Jim. Fantastic. Okay, well let's figure out how and where, and we'll do a bit of that. Everybody, I really appreciate you. Well, I appreciate you not deserting me while I was in Italy. Thanks for all your contributions today. Normal service will resume on Monday. I will think of something to put into a morning monologue by then. Until then, everybody, have a fine and splendid day. Really appreciate all your company, all your best wishes, and I shall see you very, very soon. All the best.